Last time we discussed Protoss and Zerg units, and now it's time to learn why the Terran race lost most of the iconic units from Brood War in StarCraft 2 multiplayer. The general idea behind each unit in StarCraft 2 is simple. It should fill a certain role, and its role shouldn't overlap with other existing units.
Turns out I hate the smell of napalm in the morning.
So here's Firebat, for example. It was present in the Wings of Liberty campaign, but it was deleted from multiplayer pretty much for one reason. Terrans already have Hellions, which are cheaper and faster. There is just no place for Firebats in the game. You might use them for early rushes, but they'll quickly become obsolete, and Blizzard really didn't want you to have useless units in this game. The same could be applied to Medic. In StarCraft Brood War, it was an essential part of the Terran bio army, because it was the main healing factor for Terran units. But in StarCraft 2, there is a Medivac, fast, mobile and airborne. It can quickly escape in case of troubles, and it's harder to target and destroy than a simple medic on the battleground. In Brood War, on the contrary, the Terran race had two units for these tasks, a medic and a dropship, both required for quick engagements and disengagements. Blizzard found a cool way to unite them in one unit and cut the obsolete variants. Also, dropships really annoy Protosses.
Dude, fuck this game! Fuck this!
Now, if we take a look at Vulture, that's a more problematic example. Up to this day, I cannot really think of a valid reason why this unit was removed. Vulture could lay up small spider mines that would jump at the enemy and detonate. And unlike Widow mines, spider mines were not reusable and they didn't cost anything, it was just an ability. And as a fighting unit, Vulture doesn't seem to be that efficient and he's only good against light targets.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What was that? You fucking idiot, Vulture!
The only reason that seems somewhat probable is that it would be too OP in StarCraft 2, especially against Zerg. The good thing about Widow mines that we currently have in game, they actually cost resources, supply and can be easily cleared if scouted. And despite that, they still cause a lot of trouble and annoy the players up to the point of breaking keyboards. Spider mines would be spammed in every matchup, and it would make games a lot more passive and players would be way more careful than they should be. Imagine a late game with hundreds of them on the battlefield. It would be a really sad picture, but I still believe it could be reworked in one way or another. But anyway, we'll never see Vulture because there are two units that fill the same role, Hellions and Widow mines. But what about Goliath? It's a solid all-round unit that can be used as a backbone of the Terran mech army. Goliaths can be used both against ground and flying units, and they are also faster than Force. But there is a problem. Goliath has two substitutions, but the closest one that doesn't seem so obvious is Viking. It's good against flying units, and it can also land in case of emergency to help on the ground. And while it's a flying unit, it pretty much fills the same role that Goliath has. You might argue it's a bit more expensive, but the idea is pretty much the same. And Terran race also has a more thick version of Goliath. That's obviously 4. It has splash anti-air damage and is overall much better, and expensive too. At one point, Blizzard were even considering Warhounds as a possible replacement, but they were scrapped in the beta version of Heart of the Swarm. So, to summarize, Goliaths aren't really needed except for nostalgia and some variety, but they don't really add any new strategies to the Terran army. Another scrapped unit is Wraith, and it's very easy to guess why it's not present. Why would you want a cloaked air superiority fighter? It doesn't deal much damage neither to ground nor to air units, and is also quite expensive and requires a lab to be built. It's also built of paper and it performs horribly against most units in the game, at least in StarCraft 2. And of course, we have Banshees and Vikings as a way better replacements. And there are more flying units. Valkyrie was an important part of air defense in Brood War. This unit has a nice attack with 8 rockets, but also cause some splash damage in a small area. In StarCraft 2, however, the developers were trying to shift the balance from flying units to ground compositions. Terrain was a crucial part in Brood War, and sometimes it was harder to fight the game engine than your opponent, so taking up to flying armies could be a good call. And every race had a lot of different air options, so having dedicated anti-air units was a go-to. But we need to keep in mind that in StarCraft 2, each air unit fills multiple roles. Even such a basic and blatant unit as a Corruptor can be used as a harass unit to target buildings, and at the same time, each race has a lot of ground tools to battle air compositions, and there is no particular need for advanced anti-air units, they will be rarely used. Valkyrie just doesn't fit the game because a simple Viking is enough. And moreover, we also have liberators that look somewhat as an evolution of that concept, just with more capabilities. But there's also the last unit that seems a lot better than all the mentioned above. It's the notorious Science Vessel, a very powerful flying caster, capable of swinging the battlefield in your favor. It possesses 3 abilities which pretty much allowed it to be used in all matchups either for offensive or defensive purposes. Each ability that you can see on the screen was crucial in the late game, but in StarCraft 2 it was changed and lost 2 abilities, leaving it only with Irradiate 1. But Science Vessel also learned how to repair mech units, and now it was a perfect fit for any mech composition, and it should have been a great addition to the siege tanks and force. It's quite obvious that Science Vessel was scrapped in favor of Raven in multiplayer, but what was wrong with it and why did developers choose Raven? Well, I must say, Raven has gone through a hell of a development journey, and this unit has been changed the most amongst all other things in StarCraft 2, but one core thing remained unchanged. Unlike Science Vessel, Raven is just a lot more versatile and could be used with great efficiency in every matchup. And as for Science Vessel, it's harder to find as much usage as with Raven. Sure thing, Irradiate ability could be cool against any race, but it's also harder to balance. While the ability is certainly useful, it would be super annoying to split your bio units all the time even in the low leagues, because that's pretty much a ground parasitic bomb from Viper. And as for mech repairs, well, we have SCVs for that, and mech units are tanky enough to sustain a lot of damage, so they don't really need any kind of slow repair. And that's it for Terran units. Which do you miss the most and which would you like to see in StarCraft 2? Leave your opinion in the comments and make sure to check more about deleted stuff from StarCraft 2 multiplayer here. As usual, have a nice day and see you next time.